Oh, girl. You don't have to be perfect. No.
I got cheating.
Nice. You asked Gavin today?
No. I got trading last night. I guess the thing I did worked.
What'd you do?
Remember when I went on the Epic Games thing and I said, I'm on a whole different thing than I remember? Yeah, I guess I was doing the right thing because I got trading. Because my one of the people that was watching my stream last night, we started playing some games together and I asked if I can see if I have trading and it worked.
Mm.
Look, here's my proof. If he accepts them.
I don't know why they have trading.
They've been having trading. I don't know why they need you to have 2FA for trading. That's why.
I don't know why they should have. They added trading.
The only reason why I have all this stuff is because of trading. Like most of the stuff, actually.
I don't know. I saw them doing trading and stuff.
I'm actually surprised you.
With Dying 2 right around the corner, I suggested gaming figured now would be a great time to take a look at where the story currently stands to get ready for the long-awaited sequel. Couple of notes before we start. As always, I'll have to leave some stuff out in order to keep this video succinct. This includes most of the side stories and optional quests in the first game to better focus on the main story. I also won't be talking about Dying Light Bad Blood, the standalone Battle Royale title, since it's pretty light on story elements. Additionally, I won't be going over the Dying Light 2 audio stories over on the official YouTube channel of the game, since they're mostly standalone, but I'll leave a link in the description.
Huh? A what? What? What does it look like? Alright. So it's a blue big drink, right? I might be losing. Nope, I'm not losing. That's actually really good. Bam, bam, bam. Huh? Sure, I'm not in a match anymore. can't use my mic. Hang on, can you still hear me though? Cause I can't use my mic and turn it off. What's your user? You can? Okay, that's actually good. What's your user? Sure. I kind of forgot. Okay. What is your username? Are you on PlayStation? Cause it didn't work, but the thing did not work. Are you on PlayStation? What's your Epic ID? You did? Is this you? Oh, Marie and Nick. Actually, oh, okay, I found it. I'm gonna invite you. Which one is you? Okay, okay. Dang! I do not think I have enough for all those. Okay. I really want that gravity bomb. Oh my. What do you want? Because I really feel like I'm getting flexed on right now. What do you mean? Window of junk? Like all my bad stuff, or? Or just all my bad stuff? Hang on, I have a question. Do you have any offer for my this?
Welcome to your guy.
What guy?
This guy. I buy a full window of junk for 10 credits. Welcome to Blue
I
Knight.
have the. What do you mean happened to Blue Knight?
He's not there no more.
I know, we're trading.
Oh.
I have that.
Right, Micah?
Sure. Big ones.
Huh?
Big ones.
Huh?
Big ones.
With Dying Light 2,
Yeah.
as always, I'll have to
I
leave
have
some
no idea what you said.
stuff out in order to keep this video succinct. This includes most of the side stories and optional quests in the first game to better focus on the main story. I also won't be talking about Dying Light Bad Blood, the standalone Battle Royale title, since it's pretty light on story elements. Additionally, I won't be going over the Dying Light 2 audio stories over on the official YouTube channel of the game, since they're mostly standalone, but I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check those out. Another quick note is that since the DLC expansion, The Following, has 3 possible endings, and developer Techland is keeping quiet on which one is actually canon, although there's a pretty good idea of which one it is, I'll be covering all 3 during that section. Also, because this video will likely get demonetized thanks to a lot of talk about things that are coincidentally currently affecting the world, I'll just leave a quick reminder that I've got a Patreon where you can directly support the channel and keep these videos coming out faster while being bigger and better. Or you can become a channel member here on YouTube if that's more your style. Links for both are in the description. Obviously not required, but insanely appreciated. Alright, without further ado, this is what you need to know about Dying Light. Our story begins in the year 2014, where we find Dr. Kaleem Abbas working in a free clinic in the slums of the city of Haran, Turkey. One of his patients, a boy named Joran Baydar, comes in with flu-like symptoms after claiming to have been bit by a man in the slum square. While Abbas simply writes it off as a stomach virus, the boy's feral behavior seems to point to something a bit more serious. This is proven when the boy is brought back in a few days later, but violently escapes, fighting several family members in the process. As the days continue, more and more cases of unexplained violent attacks and missing persons occur in the city. But despite Abbas's protests, President Hamid refuses to postpone the global athletic games that are to be held in the city in the upcoming days, instead tasking the doctor with finding out what's causing this medical dilemma. The games are allowed to go on, but the increased population only causes the reports of murder and missing persons to skyrocket. Abbas assembles a package of some blood samples of his patients to send to a colleague named Dr. Christina Marlowe in the United States, but somehow loses the attached letter on his way to the post office, leaving him to send her only the package. He then stops at the Newtown High School where strange chant-like noises have occurred. As he enters, however, he's attacked by a massive swarm of the yellow-eyed, mindlessly aggressive infected, who immediately kill the doctor. At the games, an event later referred to
That's
as
all.
D-Day occurs, when a horde of infected enter the games and attack the spectators and competitors. 2 weeks later, Haran is placed under quarantine after the number of infected grows beyond control. An 18-year-old American athlete in the city for the games named Mel Wyatt takes refuge in a hotel inside an area referred to as Nightmare Row. When the hotel is attacked, however, she is forced to escape on her own, getting bit by an infected during her escape. Rumors of an incoming medicine airdrop from the recently formed Global Relief Effort, or GRE, give her hope to survive. Mel fights her way through infected and uninfected alike to reach the city hall, where she believes one of the airdrops will land. There she also spots her lost brother Paul, now infected and completely turned. As she runs from the infected outside City Hall, she enters the building and takes refuge in the office of the Haran Commission of Health. Inside, she finds Dr. Abbas's items, including his letter to Dr. Christina Marlowe, which he dropped on the floor. In it, Abbas describes the rabies-like virus taking control of the city, as well as the government's inaction to prevent it and attempts to instead cover the entire thing up. He also explains that the Newtown High School has become a hotbed for the newly infected. While in the office, the now infected Dr. Abbas stumbles across her and attacks, and she kills the animal that used to be the doctor.
Kills an animal? What?
The next morning, Mel finds a supply drop from the GRE. And
What do you mean
inside, she
kills
finds a
an
single
animal?
syringe of medication labeled Antizin. Not knowing if the medication helps the already infected or not, she decides to try to use it to save her brother instead of herself. She heads to the Newtown High School, referred to by other survivors as a nest of the infected, and there she is able to disguise her own smell with the blood of corpses to enter the building. Inside, she finds her infected brother and formulates a plan to give him the medicine. After heading back out into the lives, helping a pair of uninfected girls escape from a biker gang from the slums along the way, she returns to the school with freshly crafted Molotov cocktails. She quickly finds Paul, and using the cocktails, she's able to create a diversion and get him out of the school. Mel gives Paul the medicine, but begins to succumb to the effects of the virus herself. When the medicine doesn't cure her brother, she is forced to use her revolver to put him out of his misery, before turning it on herself, using her last
Can
bullet,
you add
but missing
something
the
else
shot.
in? Like,
She is then forced to turn and begins to hunt her new prey as an infected.
No.
2 months after the initial outbreak in Haran, the GRE sent an undercover agent named Kyle Crane into the quarantine zone to track down a political figure named Kadir Suleiman, who, blaming the GRE for his brother's death, stole a file from them containing highly sensitive information about the structure of the virus, which, if released, could pose a huge threat to mankind. After parachuting into the city, Crane is forced to make a rough landing, allowing him to be ambushed by a group of bandits, led by a man named Tahir. He uses his firearm to fight off the bandits, but the shot draws the attention of a nearby infected, which bites Crane's arm. Luckily, he is rescued by a woman named Jade Aldemir, who is able to get him to safety before he passes out. Crane finally awakens 3 days later, and finds himself inside an apartment building in the slums known amongst the survivors as the Tower. There he meets Jade's brother Rahim, who tells him about a lost survivor on one of the tower's other floors. Crane decides to look for the survivor to prove himself, and once he's alone, he calls his superiors and fills them in, admitting his infection, which they claim he can temporarily keep at bay if he can find some of the antizin suppressant. Crane finds the lost survivor and helps administer some first aid until the tower's physician, Lena, can arrive to tend to him. Now seeing Crane's work, Rahim asks the man to meet him again, and when he does so, Crane finds Rahim arguing with his sister about the former's plan to use explosives to destroy a nearby infected nest before she storms off. Rahim takes Crane to the tower's rooftop and teaches him the basics of parkour, a skill he will soon find useful to escape the infected in the city. After the training, however, Crane begins to have a seizure as a result of the virus taking hold inside him. Rahim then sends Crane to find a Dr. Imran Zara nearby, who can provide him with a shot of antizin, and he then retrieves a weapon and heads out into the city of Haran alone. Crane finds the doctor in his mobile research lab, where he is currently trying to develop a vaccine for the virus. In the meantime, he gives Crane a dose of the antizin to temporarily keep him from turning. After a quick call with Rahim, Crane talks with Zara's guard, Spike, who tasks him with arming a set of traps to allow the tower's leader, Harris Brecken, to retrieve a GRE supply drop of antizin. Crane arms the traps, contacting the GRE on the way, who inform him to steal all of Zara's research as part of his mission. Crane takes shelter for the night and wakes up to bad news from Spike. Despite their efforts, Brecken's mission failed, and the man was left severely injured. Crane returns to the tower, and Jade informs him that Brecken was ambushed by bandits, who attacked him and stole the airdrop. Crane finally meets Brecken face to face, and he volunteers to retrieve the next airdrop so Brecken can stay behind and heal from his wounds. Brecken reluctantly accepts Crane's help, and he heads out, helping Lena retrieve some medication for Brecken's head trauma before finding the location of the airdrop. Unfortunately, the bandits beat Crane to the first drop, but he's able to get to the second one just before sunset. He calls the GRE, who believe that the bandits' leader, known locally as Rise, is very likely the man they're looking for, so they task him with destroying the Antizin to force a meeting between Rise and the tower, which Crane can broker. After burning the Antizin, Crane calls Jade and lies, telling her the medication is missing. Night then falls, and Crane is forced to run from the darkness-dwelling, powerful infected variant known as Volatiles to return to the tower. There, Crane interrupts a meeting between Brecken, Jade, and Raheem about buying Antizin from Rise. He offers to meet the man to set up the deal, and Brecken shows him where the bandit leader's location is. At Rice's garrison, Crane is met by Tahir once again, who seems to recognize him but lets it pass. He then briefly meets with Rise, who claims he will take Crane's services and loyalty, and Tahir sends him to meet with Rice's quartermaster, Kareem. Kareem sends Crane to climb and repair some communication towers. On his way, Crane calls the GRE and positively IDs Rise as his target, Suleiman. After repairing the antennas, Crane returns to Rise to retrieve his payment, but the warlord refuses to hand over the Antizin, instead offering a double-or-nothing assignment to go collect payments from nearby settlements. Crane then travels around the city and strong-arms these payments from a man named Jafar, another named Gersel, and finally one named Morgan. On his way back to Rice, Crane receives a frantic call from Brecken informing him that someone has fully turned at the tower, creating an outbreak on one of the floors. After rushing back towards the garrison, Crane gets another call, this time from Kareem, who instructs him to investigate a missing patrol that was transporting some documents. After finding the dead patrol and the documents, Crane runs back to the garrison to finally collect his payment. As expected, Rise again alters the deal, and instead of paying the promised 2 crates of Antizin, the warlord only parts with 5 vials. He then proposes his final condition for the full payment, bringing Jade back to his arena to fight for his amusement. Crane refuses, but Rise tells the man to leave and think about his offer. Outside, Crane calls the GRE, who urge him to fulfill Rice's request in order to complete his mission.
In Louisiana, Tony Chachere's is always part of the holidays. Our injectable marinade on the inside and our...
Crane returns to the tower with the 5 vials, handing them off to Jade before speaking with Brecken, who snaps over losing the entire floor to the virus and learning that the GRE have stopped the Antizin drops. Crane calms him down and promises to get the Antizin from Rise somehow before going up to the roof, where he finds a drunken Raheem. The young man tells Crane about his plan to blow up a nearby infected nest inside a skyscraper to make their nighttime running missions easier. The boy then stumbles off the edge of the roof, and Crane quickly grabs him, saving his life and earning his trust and starting a partnership between the two. Crane sneaks off and calls the GRE, asking them to restart the Antizin drops near the tower, but they refuse, instead prodding him to get Jade to Rice's arena. Right after, Crane receives a call from Jade about a nearby school where Rice's men have been loading boxes. Believing this to be where Rice is storing his supply of Antizin, Jade asks Crane to meet her nearby. At the school, Jade and Crane watch Tahir kill a trio of survivors before driving off, and the pair sneak inside the school separately. Crane searches for the Antizin but comes up short. The pair regroup in the basement, where they open a box to find what Rice was hiding. Not Antizin, but instead a cache of plastic explosive. Rice's men then attack, forcing Crane to fight them off as a diversion, while Jade escapes the school with the explosives. After the battle, Crane returns to the tower and warns Raheem not to use the explosives and instead allow him to execute the plan to destroy the nest. Crane then meets with Dr. Zara about a rare type of zombies he has seen at night, known as a bolter, and the doctor asks for a sample of their tissue to study. During the night, Crane is able to sneak and kill one of the creatures, taking the sample back to Zara. Zara inspects the tissue and finds that it had been mutated by an altered strain of the virus that the doctor had injected into bait he left around the city. Believing this to mean that they can use this knowledge to alter the strain further to eventually formulate a cure, Zara proposes that Crane delivers the research to a Dr. Camden in the Old Town section of Quran. Crane agrees and the doctor asks him to come back later to give him time to assemble the package. As he leaves Zara's lab, Crane gets a call from Raheem. The panicked man tells him that he had gone to blow up the nest despite his promise, but the plan went awry. The call then cuts off, and Crane rushes off to rescue him. Crane finds Raheem hiding in an abandoned train car and kills the infected surrounding it to find the injured young man inside. Raheem quickly hands Crane the explosives, which he had already armed to explode in mere minutes, and Crane rushes to the nest to plant them. Luckily, he's able to plant the explosives in time, and he escapes just before they detonate, destroying the infected nest in the process. Crane returns to the train car to find a terrible surprise, an infected Raheem, now turned after being bitten during his attempted mission. Crane is regretfully forced to kill Raheem before returning to the tower to break the news to Brecken. During their conversation, they turn to see Jade, who overheard the entire thing, and she promptly runs off. To make matters even worse, the pair then hear an explosion outside, coming from Zara's trailer. Crane goes to investigate and finds the doctor missing with his lab aflame. Knowing that Zara's capture was Rice's payback for stealing the explosives, Brecken sends Crane to the garrison to rescue him. Crane gets to the garrison and breaks inside, calling the GRE for backup. He's surprised to find that the GRE doesn't answer his call, but instead finds the Ministry of Defense on the other end of the line, who tell him that the GRE's mission has been abandoned, and they instead plan to bomb the city to eliminate any trace of the virus. Crane explains that Zara has almost found a cure, and the man on the other end gives Crane a 48-hour deadline to prove it before they drop the bombs. Crane fights through Rice's men in their compound, finding Dr. Zara, who explains that he gave his research to Jade before his capture. Suddenly, the lights cut, and when they turn back on, the pair find Rice with his men, holding them at gunpoint. Senior grabs the doctor, and Rice reveals that he allowed Crane to reach him to give up the location of his research. Rice then tells his men to search for Jade, before stabbing Zara in the leg, and having Crane taken to his arena, aptly named the Pit. One of Rice's men then bludgeons Crane with the butt of his rifle, knocking him out. When Crane comes to, he finds himself inside the pit, while Dr. Zara is being held hostage above. Rice hints that he knows about Crane's lies before leaving him weaponless to fight a horde of infected. Crane survives the arena, and Rice simply states that the GRE selects its operatives well, revealing that the warlord had known the undercover operative's true nature all along. He then gives the order to his men to release the fight as leverage to the public. Crane chastises Rice for releasing information that can end up harming masses of people, but Rice shrugs this off, telling him that the GRE never intended to use the data to make a cure, but they instead planned to weaponize the virus to sell for profit. Rice then orders his men to kill Crane, but he is able to very quickly outmaneuver them, grabbing a nearby machete and using it to kill Rice's guards before slicing off the warlord's hand, retrieving his gun from the ground and shooting the guard holding Zara hostage. Crane rushes to the moving platform lifting Zara from the pit and finds the doctor with a knife in his chest. Zara leaves the man with one final plea to save the people of Iran before dying from his wound. Just then, Rice cauterizes his wound with a torch and orders his remaining men to shoot Crane. Crane runs to escape, but as he clears the compound, he again begins to feel the effects of the virus taking hold, and he passes out. Crane awakens later to find that Brecken had rescued him and hid him from Rice's men.
I feel scammed.
The pair discuss Jade, who tried to take Zara's research to Dr. Camden in Old Town, but when Rice attacked the doctor's lab, he allowed a flood of infected inside and barricaded himself in the middle. Crane then enlists the help of a group called the Saviors, who help him get into Old Town. After fighting through another ambush from Rice's men, Crane emerges in the quarantined Old Town, where he meets with a woman named Troy who puts him in contact with Jade.
That actually
Crane
looks
finally
cool.
reveals to Jade that he had been hired by the GRE, but stresses the importance of getting the information to the Ministry of Defense before they bomb the city. Angered at the betrayal, Jade cuts the communication line, but Troy reveals that the last time Jade was seen, she was at the nearby university. Crane goes to the university and asks the survivors settled there about her whereabouts, but learns nothing. Crane then calls Troy, and she tells him to come back to her location to see something they have discovered. Troy's group, the Embers, have broken through the signal blocking in the area, and they watch a news broadcast about the GRE's implication in the virus outbreak, as well as news of an announcement of Iran's president claiming that the city was now only inhabited by infected, giving them an excuse to destroy the city with
What's your
no
epic?
backlash.
Well, this is my epic.
Crane helps the Embers detonate a series of explosives in a pattern to send a message to anybody observing the city that conscious
add me
humans
and
are
I'll
still in the
invite
area.
you.
After detonating the explosives, the Ministry flies a plane through the building, destroying the message and making the plan for naught. Crane's actions end up serving a purpose after all, as they prove to Jade that he does intend to help the survivors in Iran. The pair agree to meet in person, but when Crane arrives at the meetup spot, he only finds a message left by Rice, written in blood, beckoning him to come to the museum.
Tell me whenever you add.
Crane learns that Rice has been using this museum as a stronghold, and he finds the building's custodian.
Even though
He
I'm
tells him
probably
about
just
a
gonna
secret
get
entrance to the building
scammed
through a series of underwater tunnels. Crane swims through and enters the museum, where he is confronted by Rice, who shows Crane images of a captive Jade. Rice then sicks his men on Crane, who fights them off while traversing the museum, eventually finding the room where Jade is being held. Inside, Rice once again speaks with Crane, this time revealing that when Crane fixed his antennas, it allows him to listen into all of their communications. Knowing that with Sarah's research he now holds the true bargaining chip with the GRE, he releases a wave of infected into the room to kill the pair. They are able to fight them off, but as they go to escape, Jade collapses. Rice then reveals that Jade had been bitten hours prior. Rice then throws Crane a vial of antizin, instructing him to choose between giving it to the woman to prevent her imminent turning, or taking it himself to prevent his own. Jade takes the vial and asks Crane to promise that he will be the one to kill her when the time comes. He then begins to have another seizure and hallucinates following Jade through a dreamscape, where he eventually finds her as an infected, attempting to kill her. He is soon snapped out of the dream to find Jade injecting the antizin into him while he holds her neck, and he lets her go. Rice sends his men in, and Jade swiftly takes them down before biting into the last one's flesh, fully turning. After Rice walks away, Jade lunges at Crane, and he is forced to snap her neck, fulfilling his promise. Tahir then attacks Crane himself, but Crane is able to defeat the man in battle, recovering Jade's bag, finding tissue samples inside, but not the other research. He then executes Tahir before leaving the museum. This, or this. Before taking the samples to Camden, Crane and the Embers decide to broadcast a message to the world using a signal booster atop a giant antenna to try to stop the bomber, which is due to happen within hours. After fighting through an army of infected, Crane is able to climb the tower and transmit the message, broadcasting to the entire world that there are still survivors in the area, forcing the bomber planes to abort their mission and fly away. Crane then receives a call from the GRE offering him a safe escape from the city in a helicopter in exchange for Zara's research, but he refuses, knowing they'll only use the cure to further cover up their corruption. Crane returns to Old Town and makes his way to Camden's lab. There, he travels through the facility, while Camden reminisces about the events that led to him winding up there in the first place, and Crane pieces together that he wasn't the only GRE operative sent into the quarantine zone. When Crane finally reaches Camden, he gives the doctor the tissue samples before leaving to find Zara's missing research. Beforehand, however, he decides to call the GRE. When he calls them, however, he is shocked to hear an unexpected voice on the other end, none other than Rice, who reveals that he took the deal to hand over Zara's research to the GRE in order to secure his own exit from the city so he can continue to wreak havoc outside its walls. He then prompts Crane to come find him in order to stop him. Crane then fights through the infected, as well as the effects of his own infection, on his way back to Rice's headquarters in the slums, eventually climbing the tower there to find the warlord waiting for him at the top. Rice throws the package of research to Crane, who catches it, but is soon met by the next thing Rice throws, a knife, which lands in his chest. Crane drops the research, and Rice begins to swing a blade wildly. Crane is able to outmaneuver the man and stab him with his own blade, leaving him incapacitated to die from his wounds. As he goes to grab the research, the GRE helicopter arrives, and the distraction allows Rice to get up and push Crane over the edge of the tower. While hanging on by one hand, Crane is able to throw the research back on the roof before pulling the knife from his chest and plunging it into Rice's neck, finally killing the man as he falls off the tower. Crane then climbs back up to the top of the roof and secures the research. The GRE then call him and ask him to hand it over, but he refuses, stating that as long as the cure exists inside the city's walls, they can't bomb it. The helicopter flies off, and Crane gets a call from Camden, who states that between the tissue samples and the research, a cure will definitely be possible. Crane then heads off to deliver the package to him, now with a new sense of optimism and determination. While Camden works on the cure, Crane Crane is contacted by Lena about a man who spoke to her about people immune to the virus, as well as domesticated infected and some kind of magic. Lena gives Crane a map the man was holding, which shows a way out of Haran. The man suddenly awakens and grabs Crane, telling him to stay away and warning of the mother. Crane follows the map and finds himself outside the city walls, emerging into the countryside surrounding Haran. Crane finds a settlement, and there he meets one of the elders, Jasir, as well as his daughter, Ezgi. Jasir refuses to answer any of Crane's questions, but another man named Khan, an outsider to the group, explains that the locals are part of some kind of cult, called the Children of the Sun, that follows a woman called the Mother. Before answering more of Crane's questions, Khan proposes a partnership between the two, sending him off to retrieve a buggy from a nearby group of bandits. When Crane returns to the settlement, however, he finds Khan gone, with Ezgi in his stead, stating that the group has finally asked the man to leave. Ezgi surmises that in order for her group to cooperate with Crane, he'll have to prove himself by helping them out with various tasks and errands. Crane then drives around the countryside in his newly acquired buggy, meeting and helping the various survivors of the land. Through his travels, Crane learns more about the Children of the Sun, the Mother, and her priests, known as the Faceless. After proving his intentions are pure, Crane is invited to a lake called the Eye of the Sun, to be blessed by the Mother. There, Crane finds a ritual in progress led by the Mother, where he is surprised to see Khan, seemingly completely indoctrinated by the group. The Faceless then walk through the crowd holding sensors emitting a blue gas. When Crane inhales the gas, he begins to hear the Mother speaking with him telepathically, and he soon finds that nearby infected are no longer hostile to him. He soon collapses, and when he awakens, he finds the crowd dispelled and the Mother now gone. At this point, Jasir gives Crane a key card left behind by a former military officer. Using this key, Crane can stumble upon nuclear launch codes, as well as the key to a military transport vehicle. Inside the vehicle, Crane can find a nuclear warhead, and if he decides to, he can use the launch codes to detonate the bomb and bring the virus, as well as all of Haran, to a fiery end. Otherwise, Crane continues to help the Children of the Sun, also referred to as the Following, eventually finding a field covered in the blue gas. Crane inspects the field and finds the remnants of a military transport vehicle, including empty crates. The Faceless reveal that the Mother found this elixir that works as a temporary solution to the virus. They are working on a project with more permanence and asks Crane to find more of the elixir to buy them time. Crane investigates the cave where the Following originally found the elixir, finding another destroyed military vehicle, as well as dead members of both the Following as well as remnants of Rice's gang, much to Crane's surprise. In order to find the stolen elixir, Crane tracks down the bandits to a granary, which they are currently using as their makeshift base. There, Crane finds a kidnapped Faceless named Brother Orkin, tortured to near death. Orkin reveals that the bandits followed them to steal the cure, but they didn't know how to open it, so they went after the Mother. In his dying breath, he tells Crane to go to the lighthouse. At the lighthouse, Crane is attacked by the bandits' leader, who he is surprised to find is none other than Khan. Crane forces Khan to reveal his men's next move, and he points to the dam, where they intend to enter the Mother's den and kill her. In an attempt to kill Crane, the bandits shoot missiles at the lighthouse, bringing it down. While Khan dies in the fall, Crane survives without a scratch, and grabs what remains of the stolen vials before racing to the dam. When Crane enters, however, he finds a slew of faceless murder, as well as a trail of slaughtered bandits. As Crane looks for the Mother, she telepathically tells him her story. When the outbreak occurred, the Mother and her husband were bitten, and before the man died in her arms, he gave her a cigarette case containing a map, a key, and a list of numbers. This led the Mother and her group to the dam, where she found a locked container which the numbers opened to reveal the vials. With no other choice, the Mother ingested the serum inside. She then passed out. When she awoke, she found that she had turned into a sentient volatile. In the light, she maintains control over her own mind, but in the dark, the virus takes hold and she becomes one of the feral creatures. She then learned that when the gas is vaporized, its effects are weakened, and she was able to use that knowledge to gain her following and take care of her people. Crane tries to ask for the vials to save his friends at the tower, but she refuses to give it to him, knowing that whatever is no cure, but instead a different curse. She then gives him a final choice. to activate a warhead the military hid inside the dam as a failsafe to completely eradicate the virus. If Crane chooses to help the mother, she leads him to the warhead and he realizes that her husband had left the launch codes with a man named Attila, who Crane has
Sorry for
previously
the
helped before
spam,
the man
I
left the codes
kind of
to his
needed
death.
to.
Crane then inputs the launch codes, and the mother thanks him just before it detonates, fulfilling her perceived purpose in destroying the virus, sacrificing the thousands of nearby lives along with them. In the more likely ending, Crane refuses to activate the nuke, instead trying to force the mother to hand over the vials. Knowing he wants the serum so badly, she then opens one of the containers and pours it into his mouth, forcing him to drink it. Feeling anger over his refusal to help her save humanity, the mother then attacks the man and a battle ensues. While her abilities as a sentient volatile prove to be a challenge, Crane's own transformation, due to his ingesting the serum, begins to close the gap in their abilities. Crane is able to defeat the mother in combat, and she pleads with him one final time not to take the serum, as it will poison all of mankind and doom it to their same fate. Crane instead crushes her skull, killing her before grabbing the remaining vials. Crane tries to call Lena to tell her about his new, better lead, but as he emerges from the dam, he finds himself outside of the quarantine zone. There, a family spots him, and they are immediately struck with terror. He then looks down at his own arms, seeing his new form as a sentient volatile. The sun then sets, and as the night falls, only the sound of a volatile scream is heard in the darkness. 10 years later, in the European city of Villador, we find a doctor attempting to create a vaccine for the now named Haran-19 virus. While the vaccine is estimated to be about 83% effective, it does carry some side effects. Despite this, Army General Buren shuts down all vaccine development, stating that they plan on taking things in another direction while embracing any side effects. He then orders his men to kill all of the remaining primate test subjects while firing the doctor, who is only allowed to take personal items with her, and she grabs a necklace with a black locket. As she leaves, an announcement is broadcast throughout the city, and the military begins to deploy the unfinished vaccine gas into the air. While the doctor tries to warn her fellow citizens, she is forced to run to her car, where she uses her dress to
invite me to a
as she
party.
drives out of the city. Once outside the poisoned air, she calls an ex-girlfriend asking for a place to stay. Meanwhile, General Buren reveals his plan in his office to Professor Collins, the doctor originally leading the development. Believing that the virus would eventually destroy the city, Buren's intention is to use the incomplete vaccine to cull the herd and allow the fittest to survive, essentially speeding up the death. While he asks for Collins' help with the public relations of his plan, the professor declines, and he suddenly dies on his way out as he breathes in the gas.
152.
Later, the doctor and her ex discuss the day's events. The doctor reveals the locket contained a hidden memory card of her research. She then sees a text message from Professor Collins, who attached his own report from a test of the unfinished vaccine, showing the progression of the Haran virus from initial infection to final turning point.
Do you have
The doctor then decides to find a way to save the city before more of the gas is released into the air. Inside the military base, Buren looks at the results of the deployment and finds the side effects to be far worse than With Collins now dead, he sends his men to find the doctor before they spray the second dose. Unfortunately, during transport, one of the canisters springs a
I
leak.
feel flexed on.
Back in the ex's apartment, the doctor informs her that she was able to use the research from the professor to create an antidote for the gas. The two then hear an announcement about a party at City Hall to commemorate General Buren, and they decide to crash it. As they arrive at City Hall, the side effects of the gas continue to grow and grow, with the military now visibly taking action to stop the infected. Inside the party, the doctor finds Buren, telling her ex to remember the formula for the antidote currently resides inside her locket. The doctor confronts Buren, and she chastises him for infecting half of the city. He is quick to correct her, however, stating that it is no longer half the city, as the second dose is currently being deployed. He offers her a deal to give him the antidote for 4% of what he would make selling it, but she refuses, causing him to don a mask and open a canister of the gas, instantly infecting the doctor. The ex then shoots at the general with a gun she wrestled away from his guard, and he runs off, leaving the two women on the balcony. Not wanting to turn, the doctor simply hands her locket to the ex. Then, jumps from the building, falling tens of stories to the gas-filled streets below. The general then escapes in a helicopter, taking some of his wealthy benefactors with him, but leaving most behind. The ex then stands with the cure around her neck, knowing she is now the only hope for the city to fight its real disease, as the gas begins to rise and envelop her as well. Outside in the city, an extremely agile infected leaps across several buildings, before scaling the side of one and emerging at the top. We then see what remains of the Doctor's ex, standing before the city of Villador as the Banshee, a powerful monster with the cure to her own disease, as well as the entire city's, around her neck. And with that, we reach the end of the story thus far, where we'll pick up 10 years later with a man named Aiden Caldwell, when he arrives in the city looking for his missing sister. As we all know, however, the city holds more secrets than even he could imagine. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. Please leave a like if it helped you out, and make sure to subscribe for all my new videos. And ring that bell if you want to make sure you catch the streams where I play through the games I cover. You can also follow me on Twitter for updates at Suggestive Games, and you can come chat with myself and the community by joining our Discord server by clicking the link in the description. As mentioned in the intro, if you'd like another way to show your thanks, you can support by becoming a channel member here on YouTube or by heading over to Patreon. Both those links are in the description below. And I want to take the time to thank those folks who are helping me out every month, whose names are on screen now. Thanks again, guys. Bye.
PlayStation.
Doritos Locos Tacos only on the app now by signing up for Taco Bell Rewards. And join our fans as they use Kyle Schwarber's World Series steal to run up the score on free tacos. Steal the base, steal a taco.
Something cool. It's SXMXTHXMGCXXL.
2 years ago, I, Suggestive Gaming, along with the best Let's Play channel on YouTube, the Civic Players, went over the story of the entire Resident Evil franchise. Since then, we've seen the release of the Resident Evil 3 remake, main series installment Resident Evil Village, and an animated series called Resident Evil Infinite Darkness. Since many have been asking, and to get ready for the remake of Resident Evil 4 next year, we've decided to make an updated version of that video with these latest additions. Like the original video, we will only be covering events that are canon to the video game series, which means the Paul W.S. Anderson directed film series is off the table, as well as Welcome to Raccoon City and the Netflix series. And given the breadth of the franchise, and the fact that certain games can play out differently depending on which character you pick, we'll have to leave some things out. So, feel free to fill in the blanks in the comments. We're also treating the remakes as canon, which you can feel free to complain about there as well. Now, without further ado, this is what you need to know about Resident Evil. Our story begins on July 23, 1998, where a train owned by the pharmaceutical company Umbrella, called the Ecliptic Express, is suddenly attacked by a swarm of leeches, killing its passengers while a mysterious figure overwatches from a nearby cliff. 2 hours later, the Raccoon City Police Department's Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS, send in their Bravo team to investigate a series of cannibalistic murders in the nearby Arclay Mountains. However, on their way, their helicopter is forced to crash land in the forest. There, they find a military police transport truck overturned with its officers dead. The team then split up, and their field medic, Rebecca Chambers, comes across the Ecliptic Express, stopped in the middle of the forest. Rebecca enters the train, only to find it overrun by the former passengers, now reanimated zombies due to their exposure to the T-virus. This virus was a creation of the Umbrella Corporations. Created by the progenitor virus, an ancient West African virus, the T-virus' purpose was to mutate biological cells for the betterment of the human race, but eventually developed into a military product. After exploring the train, Rebecca eventually discovers Billy Cohen, a former Marine who was the prisoner the military police truck was transporting. The two begrudgingly form a partnership when they see the mysterious figure outside the train. Shortly thereafter, it begins to move once again. The two are able to stop the train before it speeds off of a cliff, and instead end up directing it towards an abandoned Umbrella research and training facility. There, they learn of the history of the progenitor virus and Umbrella's use of it by the corporation's founders, Oswell E. Spencer, Edward Ashford, and Dr. James Marcus. Marcus was responsible for the discovery of the virus, and while Ashford wanted to use its regenerative properties to help the handicapped, Spencer and Marcus saw its potential as a biological weapon and began creating the T-virus.
Meanwhile, Umbrella employees Albert Wesker and William Birkin observe the situation and they realize that the T-virus has gotten out of control. Wesker decides to leave Umbrella to join their rival before their inevitable discovery and implosion. Birkin, however, decides to stay behind to continue his work on a more powerful G-virus. Wesker then explains that he's planning on luring the Star's Alpha team, which Wesker has joined as a double agent, to the Spencer Mansion, where the T-virus has already spread, to collect data on the infected. Birkin then decides to arm the training facility's self-destruction measures.
After getting separated from Billy, Rebecca meets back up with Captain Enrico Marini from her team, and he informs her of Bravo Team's plan to meet up at a nearby mansion, but allows Rebecca to find Billy first. Just after, however, Rebecca is attacked by a giant bioorganic weapon, or BOW, created by the T-virus known as a Tyrant. She's able to temporarily subdue it before meeting back up with Billy, who is able to help her defeat the creature. Shortly after, Billy and Rebecca finally meet the mysterious figure responsible for the outbreak on the train, who turns out to be none other than Dr. James Marcus, or so it would seem. He reveals that he was assassinated by Wesker and Birkin on the order of Spencer 10 years prior, but the queen of his experimental leeches entered his body and absorbed his DNA in order to regenerate him, obtaining his memories and taking his identity. He then splits into a mass of leeches and chases Rebecca and Billy through the facility.
Meanwhile, Wesker makes his way to the training facility, encountering and defeating the Tyrant on the way. Once there, he comes across Spencer's lead bodyguard, Sergei Vladimir. After an argument, Sergei sends one of his genetically engineered Ivan bodyguard Tyrant units after Wesker, who is able to defeat it. Their battle is brought to a halt, however, as Birkin activates the self-destruct system. Wesker then escapes to meet with the Star's Alpha team to make their way to the mansion.
Elsewhere, Billy and Rebecca are able to defeat the Queen Leech. Afterwards, the two find the Spencer Mansion, and Rebecca heads towards it to meet with Stars, while Billy leaves, being declared officially dead to escape his war crimes.
Rebecca finds her way into the mansion, but is unable to find the rest of Bravo team. Eventually, fellow Bravo member Richard Aiken finds a sleeping Rebecca, and the two head off to find their captain Enrico Marini. On their way, the two witness Sergei Vladimir with one of his Ivans carrying a BOW prototype away from the mansion. Later, the two are ambushed by a giant snake-faced BOW called Jan, which gives chase. It is able to corner them in the library, but Richard jumps in front of it to save Rebecca. She is able to shoot the monster to scare it away, but Richard is left incapacitated, infected with the creature's poison. Shortly after, Star's Alpha team arrives to investigate the disappearance of Bravo team. They find Bravo team's downed helicopter, along with the corpse of one of the pilots, but finds all the other members missing. Shortly after, they are attacked by mutated dogs called Cerberuses, which kill team member Joseph Frost. Alpha Team's pilot Brad Vickers takes off, leaving the remaining four members, Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, and their captain Albert Wesker, to escape to the nearby mansion. Inside the mansion, the team split up to search the building. The Bravo team members are found inside, but all of them are either dead or die from their injuries, including Richard, who sacrifices himself to save an Alpha Team member. Jill works with Barry while Chris meets up with Rebecca. They learn that the mansion is actually owned and operated as a base by the Umbrella Corporation. It was built for Oswald Spencer by George Trevor, whose family was abducted and experimented on to research the progenitor virus. The daughter, Lisa Trevor, is still alive, although mutated by the virus, and Stars is forced to avoid her as they progress. After destroying a giant plant and some giant sharks, Stars eventually finds Captain Enrico Marini, who believes there is a traitor among the ranks, before he is shot and killed by an unknown assailant who escapes afterwards. Stars finds the basement of the mansion to be a secret laboratory, and there they find the Epsilon virus, which had leaked and infected the mansion's inhabitants. Wesker is finally revealed to be a double agent working for Umbrella, who led Stars to the mansion to test the BOW's effectiveness on armed soldiers. He then destroyed the facility to cover up the various illegal activities.
Okay.
Unbeknownst to the others, he had also infected himself with a mutant T-virus strain in order to strengthen his body. It is then revealed that Barry was working for Wesker under the threat of his family's murder. Wesker eventually admits to his true nature and also reveals that he plans on double-crossing Umbrella by handing over their research to their rival. He then awakens the T-002 Tyrant to attack Stars, but it instead attacks him first, impaling him. The lab's self-destruct system begins to count down, and the remaining Stars members, Jill, Chris, Rebecca, and Barry, make their way to a nearby helipad to call in Brad. He arrives just as the Tyrant reappears. The Stars team is able to defeat the creature with a shot from a rocket, and they are able to escape as the mansion explodes in the distance.
While the mansion exploded, Wesker was able to survive his attack due to the virus within his body and secretly escape. Finding Lisa Trevor on his way, Wesker traps her inside as he leaves, finally putting her out of her misery with the mansion's destruction.
2 months later, in Raccoon City, 8 patrons in Jay's bar witness a news report about increased violence in the city. Shortly after, an infected man walks in and bites one of the bar's staff, Will, killing him. The others escape, discovering the city to be overrun by infected zombies. They eventually reach the Raccoon Mall, where the police intend to detonate explosives to kill a massive group of zombies. 2 of the police are killed, however, forcing the group to assemble the detonator themselves, using it to kill the zombies. They then leave as more police reinforcements arrive to secure the city.
Elsewhere in the city, 2 firefighters investigate the boiler room of the nearby Apple Inn before it explodes, trapping them and the other survivors from the bar inside. After fighting a mutated civilian called the Suspended, they're able to escape into the city.
Later, Cindy Lennox, the waitress of Jay's bar, approaches the Raccoon Zoo, noticing a note indicating an evacuation chopper's planned arrival. The survivors enter the zoo and are attacked by various infected animals, but are able to escape to a tram. However, as the tram is leaving, it is brought to a stop as the evacuation helicopter crashes, killing another group of survivors nearby.
Elsewhere in Raccoon City, Jill Valentine awakens inside her apartment, where she has been investigating the Umbrella Corporation. Unaware of the ongoing outbreak, Jill receives a frantic call from Brad Vickers, who warns her to get out of the city immediately. Before she has a chance to react, however, a massive human-like BOW crashes through her wall and attacks, forcing her to run through her apartment building while the BOW gives chase, destroying everything in its wake. Jill eventually escapes the monster, emerging into the city streets to find it in a state of chaos. Brad finds her and tells her the monster has been searching for the remaining STARS members in the city, which now includes just them. They are soon swarmed by the infected and forced to run, but Brad is bitten. Knowing what comes next, he stays behind and forces Jill to go on without him. Jill continues to run to find safety, eventually finding a man in a parking garage who locks himself into the trailer of a semi-truck. Jill makes her way to the roof of the garage just as a helicopter flies above. She flags it down, and the pilot calls her to get in as he lands. As she approaches, however, the BOW from her apartment destroys the helicopter. Jill enters a nearby car and drives it into the creature, plunging them both off of the roof and down to the streets below. This proves to be only a minor setback for the monster, who simply stands and walks towards Jill, even as the car explodes around him. As it reaches her, however, a man nearby shoots a missile at it, temporarily incapacitating the creature. The man rushes over to Jill, introduces himself as Carlos, and takes her underground to a subway station, where his fellow Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasures Service members have established a makeshift shelter. Despite Jill's hesitation to trust Umbrella operatives, she nonetheless follows Carlos to the shelter. When they reach the shelter, Jill is introduced to UBCS platoon leader Mikhail Victor, who recognizes her as a member of STARS and asks her to help in getting the subway car moving. She agrees to help the civilians in the shelter and heads back up to the surface to find some supplies and find the substation to get the power back up. On her way, she finds an injured UBCS member and she runs to help him, but suddenly another member enters and immediately shoots him in the head. The man claims the member he killed was infected, with Jill denouncing his coldness. The two quickly go their separate ways and Jill reaches the substation, where she is forced to avoid spider-like mutated creatures while turning on the power system. After she turns on the power, Jill calls Carlos, who tells her to go to the subway company's office to enable the traffic control system so the trains can move. On
$5 your way, I rule this day. Dennis price drink bars just been raised. And Barbecue Junior is something new. Barbecue Bacon Junior just for you.
On her way, however, she is again ambushed by the giant BOW, which she is able to escape once again to reach the traffic control office. She inputs the route into the system, then makes her way back to the subway station, encountering her nemesis once again on the way. Back at the subway, Jill regroups with Carlos as the man she encountered earlier, who shot his own man, Nikolai, arrives. He expresses his frustration that Jill is there before walking off just as the BOW begins to break in. Carlos closes the security gate while Jill slips out to distract the BOW to buy them time. She lures the creature away from the train, eventually losing it in the sewers. After fighting through several fish-like BOWs, Jill reaches Carlos on a radio, who tells her they've been waiting for her to return to leave the station. As she reaches the surface, however, she is once again grabbed by her nemesis, now wielding a flamethrower. She is able to escape it again, but only temporarily, as she's forced to fight it on a rooftop nearby. After defeating it in battle, its flamethrower's fuel tank explodes, blasting Jill off the rooftop where she meets a rough landing. On her way back to the subway, she stops by an old friend, gunsmith Robert Kendo. She offers to take him to the subway, but he reluctantly declines, heading into a nearby building to deal with an unseen issue of his. Not long after, Jill is once again ambushed by the BOW, this time wielding a rocket launcher. It fires at her, which blasts her away from it. Carlos then calls and tells her he has a plan and to lead the BOW back to the station, which she does. It trips a claymore set up by Carlos, and he shoots a nearby oil tanker, causing a giant explosion as he and Jill escape back into the subway as the security gates close. Carlos sends Jill into the subway car on her own while he stays behind, being sent by Mikhail to join another operative named Tyrell to look for a scientist whose vaccine research could stop the outbreak. During the train ride, Mikhail expresses his distrust towards Nikolai, but their conversation is cut short by an explosion. When they investigate, they find the BOW chasing Jill has destroyed part of the train and climbed aboard. Jill runs, but finds that Nikolai, knowing the BOW is after Jill alone, locks her in the train car to deal with it. The BOW grabs Mikhail with its tentacle, but he sacrifices himself to detonate an explosive charge, blasting the train car off the tracks and knocking Jill unconscious. Meanwhile, Carlos and Tyrell reach the Raccoon City Police Department, where they witness an infected Brad Vickers attack and fight an RCPD officer. The pair then enter the station and find the STARS office to contact Dr. Nathaniel Bard, who is trapped in a nearby hospital. He asks for their help after revealing that Umbrella is killing the researchers to cover up the operation. Tyrell tries to track the doctor's location while Carlos receives word from Jill that the train derailed before their communications are cut off. He then rushes off to return to the subway to check on Jill. Meanwhile, Jill reaches the surface, watching the BOW, now aflame, jump into the nearby river and calls Carlos again, who informs him about the train crash and Nikolai's betrayal. However, the BOW now mutated even larger, and it attacks her, forcing another fight outside the city's clock tower. Jill is able to take it down with a grenade launcher, but as she walks past it, it grabs her. She's able to close a gate to separate the two, but it is able to stab her as she runs away, leaving a tendril in her arm and infecting her, causing her to convulse. Nikolai then walks up to the gate and smiles as she passes out.
Meanwhile, Claire Redfield is searching for her brother. Her and rookie RCPD officer Leon S. Kennedy separately stop at the same gas station, which they find to be under attack by zombies. The pair meet and take a nearby sheriff deputy cruiser to the city. There, they overhear an announcement encouraging survivors to head to the police station for shelter. They are forced to continue to the station on foot before they are separated by an explosion and carry on independently. Claire and Leon do reunite, but are separated by a locked fence. A nearby rescue helicopter is shot down and explodes, ending their reunion. Another tyrant, the T-103, appears and begins to stalk our heroes. Claire finds an underground tunnel and traverses through it, coming across a young girl named Sherry Birkin. However, shortly after, she is attacked by a mutated creature wearing a lab coat. She's able to temporarily defeat the creature, and the two make their way into the police station's parking garage. But there, they are surprised by corrupt police chief Brian Irons, who kidnaps Sherry and takes her to an abandoned orphanage. He then calls Claire, demanding she bring him a pendant that Sherry dropped, and she reluctantly agrees. After she heads off, Leon finds his way to the parking lot and meets FBI agent Ada Wong. In the station's cell area, they find a reporter named Ben Bertolucci, who was arrested by Irons for investigating Umbrella's shady operations. However, Ben is killed by the tyrant, who attacks Leon, but he is saved by Ada. The two then agree to work together and head through a gun shop owned by Robert Kendo, who takes his infected daughter aside before a single gunshot is heard, before Leon and Ada head to the city's sewer system. Meanwhile, Sherry attempts to sneak past Irons to escape the orphanage, but she's unable to escape him. However, the creature in the lab coat reappears and infects him. Shortly after, Claire arrives and finds Irons, who is killed by the parasite he was infected with. Claire then finds Sherry in a facility under the orphanage, but the two are found by the tyrant. During their escape, the creature appears once again and kills the tyrant, but turns its attention towards the two. It attacks an elevator they're in, causing it to drop violently, knocking Claire unconscious and forcing Sherry to head off on her own. Claire is awakened by Annette Birkin, Sherry's mother. She informs Claire that the creature chasing them is her husband, William, mutated. She also reveals that she took Sherry before leaving suddenly. Claire heads off and eventually finds Sherry trapped inside of a trash compactor by Annette. Through her travels to unlock the compactor, Claire discovers proof of the truth. William had escaped with the G-virus, hoping to sell it to the U.S. military. He was discovered by Umbrella soldiers who shot him fatally. However, in order to survive, he was able to inject himself with the virus in his final moments. He then hunted down and killed the soldiers, shattering the vials of the T-virus they held and causing the outbreak in Raccoon City. Claire encounters William and fights him once again before successfully opening the compactor. Inside, she rescues Sherry, but finds her to be infected by William, who had been hunting her due to her DNA closely matching his, allowing for the virus to spread. Annette tells Claire that she can heal Sherry at her lab, an umbrella facility called Nest. Meanwhile, Leon and Ada also come across Annette. Ada informs her that they're there for the G-virus, but Annette responds that it won't be possible. She then ignites an infected
I'm back.
fire. Leon tackles Ada and takes a bullet for her, passing out afterwards. Ada follows Annette, eventually finding her, but also getting knocked into a trash compactor. Leon awakens and rescues Ada, and the two head off to Nest as well to get a sample of the virus. On their way, Leon and Ada share a moment and a kiss, and Leon continues on as Ada is too injured from her fall into the compactor. Leon obtains the sample and battles William. Afterwards, Annette reveals that Ada is not actually an FBI agent, but rather a mercenary who plans to sell the virus. Leon confronts Ada, and she admits her deceit, pulling a gun and demanding Leon hand over the virus. Annette shoots her, however, and she slips off the bridge they stand on. Leon reaches to catch her, dropping the virus into the abyss beneath the lab. Leon loses his grip, however, and Ada falls as well.
I love this skull explosion so much.
Alright,
understandable because I also had to do some.
Administers the virus to Sherry. Claire emerges victorious, and Annette succeeds in curing Sherry before dying from wounds incurred by William.
And I have a big feeling I know what this is.
I
have a gigantic feeling.
Where she successfully communicates with Leon. After fighting and defeating William once again, Claire enters the train and takes off. Elsewhere, Leon encounters the tyrant once again, and Ada, who somehow survived her fall, tosses him a grenade launcher to help him defeat the creature. He does so and escapes to find the moving train, hopping on and finding Claire and Sherry inside. The train is attacked again by the final remains of William. The pair are able to defeat him once and for all, and the three finally escape the city. They leave the train to continue on foot, and Leon and Claire swear to continue their fight to take down Umbrella, and the three agree to stay together, at least for now. Afterwards, the sole survivor, William Birkin's attack on the Umbrella operatives, codenamed Hunk, escapes the city with a sample of the G-virus. At a temporary shelter, Dr. George Hamilton finds a note from his colleague, Dr. Peter Jenkins, asking him to help at the nearby Raccoon University. George takes some survivors to help Jenkins at the university, but when they arrive, they find him dead by gunshot to the back of the head. They find his notes referencing an antivirus called Daylight intended to fight the T-virus. The survivors then set out to find the materials needed to synthesize the antivirus. Elsewhere, a team of mercenaries working for Umbrella encounter an experimental tyrant BOW called Thanatos, created by rogue Umbrella researcher Greg Mueller. Nikolai arrives to collect a sample of Thanatos' blood, which he does, enraging the monster and causing it to kill all of Nikolai's ground troops. The canister of blood falls, and the survivors are able to retrieve it to obtain one of the Daylight components. They then obtain the other two components and head to synthesize the vaccine. Upon doing so, however, they are interrupted by Mueller, who threatens them with Thanatos before he is shot dead by Nikolai. The survivors then escape with the sample, and Nikolai starts a timer on a detonator of C4 charges throughout the university. The survivors escape and battle Thanatos, finally defeating the monster. A helicopter then rescues them as they escape with the sample of Daylight.
Sometime later, Carlos finds Jill and carries her off to the nearby Spencer Memorial Hospital to look for Dr. Bard and hopefully his vaccine. After fighting off several Hunter Beta BOWs, Carlos finds Dr. Bard. However, he's dead, with a bullet hole in his head. He investigates a nearby computer, finding Bard's final message, where he admits to Umbrella's involvement in the T-virus creation and outbreak. In the video, he explains he has a sample of the vaccine in his office, with more stock of it downstairs. He again warns that Umbrella plans to kill him, erase any trace of the vaccine, and cover up the entire ordeal. Carlos grabs the vaccine sample and heads back to give it to Jill. After injecting it, Carlos and Jill both rest, but Carlos is later awoken by Tyrell, who barges in and wakes him up. They then hear an emergency announcement that the military plans to destroy the city in a massive missile
I don't
strike
have a
the
black
next day.
market
Carlos then
decal
fights off an onslaught
that is
of
tradable. I bought my
Davis
black market
before heading
decal
underground to
and
look for the rest of the vaccine before the military strike. Afterwards, Jill wakes up and speaks with Tyrell, who fills her in
hang
on the
on, can you
situation.
hear me without
He heads to the
even
underground
me
storage facility
typing
to look for
or stuff?
Carlos. Later, Tyrell arrives, telling her that he was able to speak with the military to delay the missile launch if they can
Yeah,
deliver the vaccine.
Kizzy.
When they arrive at the storage facility, Jill's nemesis arrives and kills Tyrell, forcing her to run off. She
What
finds
wash
the
or
vaccine
what
facility,
wash?
but learns that she has to synthesize it herself. She collects the samples required and places it into the machine, successfully synthesizing it and obtaining the vaccine sample to turn over to the government. Just after, she is grabbed by the BOW and is chased into a giant room with several large tanks. She drops the vaccine and falls off the catwalk, grabbing the edge
I
and
really
hanging
want
on.
that gun.
Nikolai arrives
I
and grabs
really
the
want that
vaccine,
gun.
telling Jill that he's going to record and sell the combat data from her battles with the Nemesis. He then kicks her off the ledge, and she is forced to fight the creature one-on-one. Carlos arrives to provide support during the battle, and the pair are able to work together to defeat the creature. Jill escapes and comes across Nikolai, who she threatens to hand over the vaccine.
Briley, I am grounded from my mic, so I won't be able to hear you.
Sends him to catch Nikolai before she battles the Nemesis for the last time. After their final battle, Jill obliterates the monster with an experimental railgun before rushing off to the elevator.
Apparently I was being too loud, and that's why I had to get off last night.
Incapacitated Carlos on the ground, and Nikolai
And plus my
ambushes her.
monitor,
He then throws the vaccine to her, but she survives, destroying the sample.
it's,
He then reveals that
I can't hear out of it.
employers pay him to bring down
There's
Umbrella.
no
They then
speakers.
hear an announcement that the missile has launched, and they have 10 minutes until impact. But as Nikolai starts to leave, Carlos
Oh, let's
attacks him.
go.
The two fight, and Jill shoots Nikolai in the chest. Carlos enters a nearby helicopter. And
I really want that,
Nikolai offers the
please.
truth
Oh
behind his
god, I
employers
really
and
want
motives
that. I
if they
really
take him
want
with them.
that.
Jill refuses, however, as she enters the helicopter to leave with Carlos, instead electing to figure out the truth on her own. The pair then fly off, leaving Nikolai and Raccoon City behind, while vowing to take down Umbrella.
I put in decals.
Elsewhere, we find an Umbrella Security Service member, Captain Rodriguez, preparing to leave the city in an aircraft with a stolen BOW. He is with Umbrella researcher Dr. Linda Baldwin, who convinces him to wait while she goes back to the R&D center to retrieve a drug that may help in stopping the spread of the virus. As she enters, experimental hunter BOWs escape captivity and place the facility on lockdown. Baldwin is able to obtain her sample, but cannot escape the facility until the lockdown is released. Another researcher, Dr. Carter, begins to activate a tyrant, called the Tyrant R, hoping it can kill the hunters and allow their escape. The Tyrant R succeeds in killing the hunters, and Carter then plans to cause it to destruct by activating a bomb hidden within the creature. However, the Tyrant R interrupts this plan, killing him, destroying the sample, and knocking Baldwin down into the water treatment facility below. There, she is found and rescued by survivors, and after some water flushes through the sewers, they emerge outside the Apple Inn. After fighting the Tyrant R once more, the survivors reach Rodriguez and escape the city before its destruction commences.
Meanwhile, we find Ada escaping the sewers to the surface of Raccoon City, in front of the Apple Inn. There, she intends to meet her contact from Umbrella's rival company, but finds him dead of suicide. Suddenly, Albert Wesker calls her on a nearby computer, accusing her of failing her mission and defecting to help Leon. But she shows him the sample of the G-virus she was able to recover. Wesker then informs her of the city's imminent destruction and tells her to find a helicopter carrying an Umbrella executive to escape him. Ada makes her way, fighting the Tyrant R on her way and killing it in turn, before finding the helicopter and attaching her grappling hook to a package being carried by it, allowing her to escape the city. Afterwards, the U.S. government carries out their plan and destroys Raccoon City with a thermobaric missile blast.
1 month later, Private Detective Ark Thompson is asked by Leon, his personal friend, to investigate an Umbrella facility. Ark is able to infiltrate the Umbrella-controlled Sheena Island under the guise of impersonating Umbrella Commander Vincent Goldman. However, Ark is seen by a child, Lot Klein, who informs the real Vincent of this imposter. Vincent, believing Ark to be sent by Umbrella headquarters to find proof to remove him from his position, then triggers an outbreak, hoping to escape in the scuffle during the cleanup operation. During the outbreak, Vincent discovers Ark in his office. The two have a quick fight where Vincent grabs Ark's dog tags, but Ark is able to escape to the helipad and commandeer the chopper there. Vince grabs onto the landing skids, and as Ark attempts to fly away, he loses control, causing Vincent to fall to the ground, and the helicopter crash lands with Ark still inside. When Ark recovers, he wakes up with a gun, but no memory of who he is or why he is there. He fights through the island's infected inhabitants, finding Vincent's unconscious body, holding his dog tags. This causes Ark to believe that the man in front of him is Ark Thompson. Eventually, Ark finds photographs of him impersonating Vincent, leading him to believe that he is in fact the commander and the perpetrator of the horrible acts on the island. Ark continues through the island, finding the Umbrella facility and two children, Lot and his sister Lily, whose parents were employees of Umbrella. They initially fear him, believing they'll be punished for revealing his identity to Vincent, but he protects them and earns their trust, leading Lot to reveal Ark's true identity to him, which sparks him to regain all of his memories. The facility suddenly triggers a self-destruct sequence, and Ark sends the kids to the facility's railway station where he will meet them. However, on his way, Ark encounters the prototype Hypnos T-type Tyrant. After fighting the Tyrant, Ark heads to the railway.
I don't got credits anymore. I gave away all my credits.
There, the Tyrant attacks
Only had
once again, but
100
Ark
anyway.
defeats it and takes off in the helicopter. However, still not quite done, the Tyrant grabs the helicopter, but Ark fires 2 missiles at
So
it,
yeah, I
finally
don't
killing
got
it.
any.
The 3 then fly off in the distance, not quite knowing what their future holds.
3 months after the destruction of Raccoon City, Claire infiltrates an Umbrella facility, still searching for Chris. Claire is captured by Rodrigo Juan Raval and imprisoned in the remote Rockford Island facility. While unconscious in her cell, she is awakened by the sound of a nearby explosion. Rodrigo arrives and releases Claire from her cell, believing they all will be dead soon anyway. Outside, Claire discovers that an outbreak of the T-virus has occurred on the island. Shortly after, she comes across a fellow escaped inmate, Steve Burnside, and the two discover that Chris has been under surveillance by Umbrella. Claire uses the facility's PC to contact Leon to inform Chris of her capture and Umbrella surveillance. Claire continues on and finds the Ashford estate, eventually meeting its inhabitants, twins Alfred and Alexia Ashford, who try to hinder Claire and Steve's progress. The pair eventually discover Alfred to be disguising himself as his sister as part of a dual personality disorder before they are able to escape the island in an airplane. During their flight, they are attacked by the T-078 Tyrant, which Claire is able to fend off before the ship's autopilot activates and takes them to an Umbrella facility in Antarctica. There, they are again confronted by Alfred, who Steve is able to shoot, causing him to fall into an abyss. Just after this, the mutated remains of Alexander Ashford, the twins' father, as well as son of Umbrella co-founder Edward Ashford, awaken as the Nosferatu, and it attacks the pair as they reach a helipad. Claire fights the creature and kills it, allowing her and Steve to take a nearby snowmobile and head off to a nearby research outpost. Meanwhile, Alfred crawls to find his sister, Alexia, waking from a cryogenic sleep she was put under after she injected herself with the T. Veronica virus the family developed 15 years prior. Now awakened with mutated abilities, but her consciousness intact, she is able to dispatch a tentacle to capture Claire and Steve. She then cradles her brother as he finally dies. In the meantime, Chris Redfield arrives on Rockford Island after receiving Claire's message from Leon. While searching the island to determine where Claire has gone, Chris comes across Albert Wesker, who was hired by a new organization to capture Alexia.
2 years ago, I, Suggestive Gaming, along with the best Let's Play channel on YouTube, the 2 Big Players, went over the story of called Red. The Raccoon City Police Department's Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS, send in their Bravo team to investigate a series of cannibalistic murders in the nearby Arclay Mountains. However, on their way, their helicopter is forced to crash land in the forest. There, they find a military police transport truck overturned with its officers dead. The team then split up, and their field medic, Rebecca Chambers, comes across the Ecliptic Express, stopped in the middle of the forest. Rebecca enters the train, only to find it overrun by the former passengers, now reanimated zombies due to their exposure to the T-virus. This virus was a creation of the Umbrella corporations. Created by the progenitor virus, an ancient West African virus, the T-virus' purpose was to mutate biological cells for the betterment of the human race, but eventually developed into a military product. After exploring the trade, Rebecca eventually discovers Billy Cohen, a former Marine who was the prisoner the military police truck was transporting. The two begrudgingly form a partnership when they see the mysterious figure outside the train. Shortly thereafter, it begins to move once again. The two are able to stop the train before it speeds off of a cliff, and instead end up directing it towards an abandoned Umbrella research and training facility. There, they learn the history of the progenitor virus and Umbrella's use of it by the corporation's founders, Oswell E. Spencer, Edward Ashford, and Dr. James Marcus. Marcus was responsible for the discovery of the virus, and while Ashford wanted to use its regenerative properties to help the handicapped, Spencer and Marcus saw its potential as a biological weapon and began creating the T-virus.
Meanwhile, Umbrella employees Albert Wesker and William Birkin observe the situation and they realize that the T-virus has gotten out of control. Wesker decides to leave Umbrella to join their rival before their inevitable discovery and implosion. Birkin, however, decides to stay behind to continue his work on a more powerful G-virus. Wesker then explains that he's planning on luring the STARS Alpha team, which Wesker has joined as a double agent, to the Spencer Mansion, where the T-virus is already spread, to collect data on the infected. Birkin then decides to arm the training facility's self-destruction measures.
After getting separated from Billy, Rebecca meets back up with Captain Enrico Marini from her team, and he informs her of Bravo Team's plan to meet up.
So let's talk Dying Light 2, because as it turns out, you don't actually need 500 hours to complete the game, like the official Dying Light Twitter account shared a couple of days ago. As you can see here, they literally said it would take 500 hours to complete the game. Turns out that's not true. An update shared that meant doing everything in the game. We're talking about multiple endings, every quest, finding all of the stuff. But to finish the story of the side quest in less than 100 hours, even that seems like a ton. So then the truth comes out. They've apologized for poor communication, and have said the main story itself is going to take you about 20 hours to complete. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm an adult, grown-ass man with a job who bought a $9 mini microphone to talk about this on TikTok. 20 hours is more than enough for me. I don't need 500 hours either. Even then, if I did want more, 80 hours is 2,500 hours for everything. Perfect. And this updated graphic does a good job of explaining that.
So looks like me you've just been starting my two campaign. These 4 days feels more than you're thinking, well, I do now. Thinking, well, no, the game's not over. There's still a lot more for you to do. And the game has not finished off in the main story. There's still a bunch of side quests, a bunch of other stuff you can do, and a lot of exploring to do as well. But let me show you guys the two videos. Okay, firstly, let me state that aside from the actual missions and objectives you have to do, just running around the map and doing parkour and exploring itself. Let me state that you can always just run around and have fun and that's all. Okay, so first thing you notice is when you click on map, it's like there are a bunch of question marks, a bunch of symbols everywhere. And these are all activities you can do that you're going to do in the game to keep you occupied.
fight for survival. But today, fight for glory. Anyone can be a warrior. What makes you different is the spirit of a champion.
Friends, we're back. We have some major news for you today. Finding their post-launch content roadmap, which you can find on screen right now. So obviously the interview starts out with saying how excited Techland is. They're excited to be working on post-launch content because they know how important supporting a game after launch. I mean, honestly, that's no surprise. We saw what they did with the original Dying Light. They made major updates over the course of 7+ years, and they're going to be doing the same with Dying Light 2. They are very much committed to be fixing this game, adding more content, and one of the things that Team Bone did say in here was that one of the reasons is what I think we have realized we have invented or maybe discovered a formula that actually being on good terms with your community and working with your community and supporting your community, lucky to be able to own a very high-level roadmap for the first year. But as players will soon discover, we will add more to the first year roadmap, and we will invite them to actually discover more content that will drop within Challenges 1, series of events mutated and infected, which is supposed to be starting in April. So that's planned all the way until June. We first had the faction-inspired free DLCs, set of Challenges 1, series of events mutated and infected, which is supposed to be starting in April. So that should be coming very, very soon. We have set of Challenges 2 in May, and then the first story DLC in June, which we will be going over in a couple of seconds here. What I do want to mention too is that reception to some of these free DLCs has been very mixed. Obviously with the faction-inspired free DLCs, they were outfits. A lot of it wasn't really meaningful because of the lack of a transmog system at launch. Team Bone and Tech1 have stated that a transmog system may be coming later down the road, but at the time of this video being recorded, no such thing exists. And then we also have the set of challenges that occurred in March, and actually just very recently added even more challenges. I mean, are they really worth going into playing? The set of challenges kind of offer maybe like an additional 20 to 30 minutes of content, because like I said, if they're kind of wanting to pile the unique, that would really benefit me. And of course on top of that, it's undated, but they have the second story DLC, new weapons, enemy stories, events free, and new DLCs, and so much more. Now, when it comes specifically for the first DLC, this is what Team Bone had to say. We don't want to fall into this repeating pattern where players will kind of know what to expect from us. Having said that, for example, the first story DLC that we have promised, I've seen a lot of speculation about what it will be, and I can confidently say that they weren't close to the mark. That right there can mean a lot of things, because I think the majority of the community right now is expecting Elysium. I'm actually going to make this a future video, but I feel like the first DLC will kind of fail in a way if it's not Elysium, because, like I said, the community is expecting Elysium. Everybody is going and expecting this first story DLC to be something major and add whole new locations, maybe get to that E3 location that we missed out on the launch day. It's going to be very interesting to see how they take this, because in the next quote that I'm going to read to you, it leaves a lot less open-ended. And when I say this to you, I want you to go start brainstorming, go through the comments, and leave your thoughts down. So as you know, Dying Light 2 has multiple endings. I'm not going to get into spoiler territory, but depending on your choices, the final outcome will leave Aiden in various different places. The interviewer asked, is the DLC going to be an addition to the end of the game? And Team Bone said that it is going to be sideways to the main event, which is very interesting. They're not adding on to the ending of the game just yet. So there's going to be a certain point in the story where it's going to deviate on a different path, and you're going to do some side stuff. You're going to go and do the first story DLC. So in a way, because you're deviating off the path, Aiden's end goal is still to go find Walt, find me. And I'm going to continue that narrative. If it does, fuck me, Danny. I'm really sick of it. And personally, I just like where the game was left off, because it wrapped up that entire story. And in a while, you know, the future is going to be whatever you want. I will say, if they go and ignore the whole Mia Walt thing, that's great. Me, personally, what I would like to see, so there's like this little gray section when you do the E3 mission, and then you do the final mission. If you beat the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that area right after you go and decide whether or not to do the water pump. That's like a little section of the game that is just on fucking hyper speed, and it wants to end. So maybe right there they go and add this whole side event. Maybe it expands on the Colonel, expand on the Renegades, expand on some of the factions that are in the game. That would be something that I would love to see. Team Bone did say that at some do you think this will occur during the story of Dying Light? I actually went on Twitter, I asked this question, and I proposed my idea of it being between the E3 mission and final mission of the game. Some people did say maybe it will lead to an underground bunker where they supposedly should be stored all the city's guns and ammunition. That would be an interesting way to increase gun benefit. Other people did mention that you may play as another character, so maybe Spike or Hakon. And some people did bring up concerns saying, I don't see how they can pull this off without it being really weird to just ignore them in game and not cross-reference it. That's a very good point, because depending on the actions of what you do in the DLC, like, let's say you have something completely major. Let's say you blow up a building. Let's say you just completely annihilate the Peacekeepers or something. And you go into the final mission, the Peacekeepers are on your side like nothing happened. He does bring up a very good point. We do have, it's definitely going to be after broadcast between that and maybe Veronica. We also have Achilles here saying maybe it's what Lo1 does in her meantime while Eden reads in the library. Fucking chat, bro. Netro said they will add the third area that's missing from the Metro, so Elysium, but maybe some other concept. I'm really hoping they go into Elysium and maybe they stretch out that whole what was E3 at one point. If you look back at E3 2018, E3 2019, there's a whole section of the game that's no longer in the final product. I know Doge did mention that he would like to see a Hakon DLC, and it'll be something I'll do. And then of course there are people saying Haran, Crane, all of that. I think the main point to take away from this, and also the second DLC, is that it's most likely not going to be Elysium. Yes, we did have that leak very recently discussing new locations, metro stations, power stations, and all that. And like Chad Mantine said, he's seen a lot of speculation online, and it's not exactly on point. Because the community went into those metro stations, saw a third area named Elysium, everybody has been expecting the first DLC to be exactly that. I do think Elysium will come at some point, it's just a matter of when. Right now, it seems like they're going to be expanding on something major. I think this would be the perfect opportunity to go and maybe flesh out the Renegades completely, maybe make them on par with how the Peacekeepers are treated and also the Survivors. Maybe they can go and express the difference between Waltz's Renegades and the Colonel's Renegades, because Waltz's Renegades are completely laughable maniacs, while the Colonels are overall much more civilized in a way, I'd say. But yeah, that is everything regarding what we know about the first DLC that's launching in June. For now, who knows? It could be delayed. But friends, what do you think? What do you think about this?
Got a few of them. But probably the first six stuff. What is this?
This man took a bank hostage. The reason why will shock you. So we start out with two cops dragging the man out of the building. Then the cops hit him on the ground, uncuff him, hand him his property, and leave him there. A woman approaches him and hands him his glasses, which he puts on. His face is bruised. Okay, this movie is based on a true story. Next, we see some random images. A guy feeding birds, two boys skating, a guy breakdancing, a guy playing with the violin. Then we end with the guy from the beginning, Brian, smoking in the tank. Later in the evening, he's walking by the road playing a game with his daughter over the phone before he runs out of credit. He gets to his room, freshens up, packs some stuff into his bag, and heads out. He walks into a Wells Fargo, then pauses to take a smoke in front of the building before heading inside. He steps inside, looks around slowly, goes to pick up a form, and enjoys the view. Riveting stuff. He's really sweating now and looking around for security cameras when a teller calls to answer him. He wants to withdraw $25 from his account, and the teller, Rosa Diaz, is being so nice to him. I love her. She's telling him a cute little story about her daughter. She hands him his money. So sweet. Anyway, after that cute conversation, he takes a paper, writes something on it, passes it to her. Oh, I see. My guy's a sharpshooter, sliding his number to her like that. But from the way her smile changes to a look of fear, it can't be. Oh, damn. He says he has a bomb. She then asks what he wants her to do. He says, trigger the alarm. She's like, really? And he says, I need you to call the coppers right now. Meanwhile, another woman notices the look on Rose's face and immediately tells the customer she was attending to leave. She goes to tell other people to leave and then goes to the door and stops customers from entering. Brian notices her now. He tries to get more people to leave, but Brian moves towards her and asks, who's in charge here? And she replies that she's the manager and her name is Karen. Just kidding. Who wouldn't that be ironic? Her name is Estelle Valerie. Rosa has still not been able to get through to that door, by the way. He tells Estelle to let the customers leave and then lock the front and back doors. While she's doing that, Rosa finally gets through to that door more, and Brian jumps over the counter to speak to the operative himself. He apologizes to Rosa, by the way. Gentleman or civic? I'm not sure. He introduces himself as one operative and says he has a bomb and he will off himself and everyone else in here if his needs are not met. What are his needs? He wants back the disability check that was stolen from him. The operative asks him what he looks like and he says he's black, not affiliated with any group. She asks him if he can let the employees leave, but he says no, as long as everybody stays calm and nobody gets hurt. They ask him what kind of clothing he has on and he gets paranoid asking if they have a sniper on him. He drops the phone and goes to disconnect all security cameras and close all the blinds. Then he hides behind a bench. From there he shouts to the manager to call everyone. He wants the fire trucks, the press people, and even the X-Men. He says everybody thinks he's playing, but he's not. He's now talking to himself saying he doesn't want to be clapped before he tells his side of the story. Then he tells the ladies to contact the news network and have them come down here. He asks for the lights to be turned off and then asks for a negotiator. He asks Rosa to close the blind behind her. As he does that, he apologizes to her. This guy is exceptionally apologetic. Then he runs around the office and then to a telephone where he talks to the operative again. He asks Rosa to stand in front of him, acting the machine as he opens shut. He's now assuring her that he won't hurt her as he starts a random conversation with her, asking her how much he likes and all of that. He now asks Estelle if they've been robbed before, and she says yes once. He asks how it ended, and she says he was arrested. He asks, they didn't kill him? She says no. So he replies, he had to be what? Society moment. He then asks her to go call it out. As she moves to her desk to do that, he tells Rosa he wants to make a call to his people to tell them what's going on so they won't be worried. He keeps going to voicemail though. Then the call comes in. A customer wants to speak with Bridget about her 401k. He tells her that Bridget is not around. He can take a message for her. He's taking the call and the most polite customer care agent ever, and the women are shocked. I am too. I mean, I've never been robbed by someone so polite. To be fair, I have nothing but steal it. Usually makes them pretty mad. At this point, we see some armed officers positioning themselves outside the bank. Brian now ducks behind the counter, and as he's hitting some buttons on the phone, Rosa tells him she can get him the money he needs. It's sitting right up there, she says. But Brian says he doesn't want the an employee trying to get into the bank. Sir, read the room. Estelle shouts at him to leave, and he does. He apologizes for refusing to Rosa for calling the cop on him while Estelle is still on the phone. Ryan goes back to the phone and is asking why he still doesn't have a negotiator. They tell him to hold on. He seems to be running out of patience, so he takes out the bomb in his bag and holds it in his hand and puts his hand in the air. Estelle is begging him not to do it, saying they have kids. And he's shouting on the phone that all he needs is a negotiator. He wants to talk. They just keep telling him to hold on, but they just keep putting him on hold. He drops the phone and apologizes again and asks them if they want to use the restroom. Estelle says yes and goes. Of course, she doesn't really want to be. She gets in to text Rosa. She tells her they need to leave and she'll try to unlock the door. After some time, Brian tells Rosa to go check on Estelle in the bathroom and make sure she's good. He's now connected with the negotiator. Brian tells him he just wants his money. The negotiator tries to get him to come out, but that doesn't work. As they're on the phone, they see a news truck pull up outside, so Brian tells Estelle to turn the TV up. He tells the negotiator that he'll blow up the place if his demands are not met. But just before he drops the phone, he asks him to connect him to his daughter since he's not been able to reach her. After he drops the phone, he asks Rosa if she thought the conversation was good, and she gave it a fighting 5 stars. This guy is really hilarious. Now he sees his daughter, Kaya, walking into her mom's room and reaching for the phone, which is ringing. She tells her mom who is sleeping that someone must really want her.
Pacifica was a crisp golden lock. Bruce was
So she picks up the phone. It's Brian. He's celebrating like a big deal for a long time depending on how things pan out. But she's taking it with a pinch of salt and asking him if he's off his meds. Oh, that explains everything. He says he's serious stuff and that everything he does is for her and his daughter. He now tells her he's holding up a bank and plans to speak to his daughter. While that call is going on, the woman in the bank is texting and trying to devise a way to run. Estelle asks Rose to keep her eyes on her. She'll soon open the door and they have to run. Brian is now speaking with his daughter, telling her he loves her and apologizing to her. He's explaining the situation to him in the best way he can. He says when people steal from you, you just have to find a way to get it back. Then he says when he does, get her a puppy. She does that and she just runs off the call and hangs up. That's all she needed to hear. Then drops the phone and he's looking at Rosa now telling her she looks scared. She says she is. I mean, who wouldn't be? He promises her that if he dies today, then he hears the sound of a helicopter, and that takes him back to his military days. There's a short trip, he's back to the present. Then the customer from last time calls again for Richard. Brian is not so nice this time. He yells he's currently robbing the bank and she should not call back. Estelle is now talking to Brian, telling him she can relate to his predicament. Same thing happened to her ex-husband. She tells him she's scared, but she still feels compassion for him. She has a son herself. Now he gets a little paranoid. He asks her if she told him that story about her family because she thinks he's slow. Apparently, a lot of people think of him as a fool, but she reassures him. She says she's just scared. He then asks for the TV to be turned off. Outside, we see Copley and Bernard getting strapped up and breathed. Basically, everybody's out here. Back inside now, Brian puts a call to WSB and gives him a tip that he got Wells Fargo holding up the bank with the bomb. They quickly set up a camera and start interviewing him. They ask for his social security number and he gets paranoid again. He says he can't give it to them. I mean, why would he anyway? They ask where he got the bomb and he says he can't give that information yet. While they're talking, the police are patching up the call and now Bernard is asking why the suspect is talking to a reporter. Brian just keeps telling his story of how he was in the Marines, went on tours, and had an honorable discharge. The reporter, Lisa, asks about the VA. We see a very beautiful switcher scene. He flashes back into the VA's office where they're giving him a top time. He basically asks him for a disability check. There's not even feet on the streets. She hands him a flyer for people who are food and housing insecure, and he stands up and leaves the office. He thinks about joining the queue outside, but it's just so incredibly long. That queue is literally endless. Now we're back to the phone call. He's saying he's not a psychopath. He then asks a reporter to make the interview live. Literally begs. The woman is now telling him he won't allow his children and her children watching both the bank on live TV. Understandable. We now come to outside the bank. Different military guys are taking positions. Snipers are setting up. Some guys are jumping over the fence. All that stuff. Then an FBI agent calls Cassandra and asks her for her current address. Next thing, we see agents break into Brian's room and start searching everywhere. They find nothing. No sign of an accomplice either. Then Brian starts telling the reporter how his brother put a hit out on him. Apparently he put 20K on his head. Just 20K to get your own blood clap. He's not even working to be called Judas. Judas put 30. While he's talking, Rosa texts Estelle and tells her that Brian is crazy and they're going to die. Before Estelle can even reply, Brian tells the reporter he wants to be in front of the camera. Trust me, it's not worth it. While they're trying to set it up, Bernard goes out to make sure it doesn't happen. He tells the reporters to stay away from the bank and even stay away from the phones. Lisa asks him to go to a window, and he says no. I mean, obviously. He asks them if they have a long way. Bernard, speaking to Sergeant, by the way, now goes to a major and tells him, my professional opinion, this is some bullshit. Oh, you got some balls on you, brother. Well, it works. The major allows him to do his thing. Back inside the bank, Estelle's now typing a message to her son on her notes app. Basically, she's telling him goodbye. She thinks she's gonna rip in peace. Bernard now gets in the car and drives away while Brian is easily inside the bank because he still hasn't gotten the attention he needs. This day and age, if you want attention, you gotta do some cool dances on TikTok. He now pulls something with a contraption in his hand, and it starts beeping, and the red light starts blinking. The reporter tells him the negotiator wants to talk to him, so he turns off the beeping thing, puts his contraption back in his bag, apologizes to the woman, again, and walks off. Now we're seeing little Kaya creep up on her mother. She's watching the news and pacing around. She sees her dad's face on the news and calls out, "Daddy, chill." Now her mother's holding and cuddling her.
Dad?
The office also with the TV, sees Brian, and she has a look of shock on her face. We're now back at the bank, and Brian receives a call from Bernard. He starts off empathizing with him. He then asks what he can do for him. Brian says he just wants his money back. That's all. Brian then finds out that Bernard is also a Marine, so he makes a little Marine joke and they both laugh. Something about watching your best friend's legs get blown off. Real funny stuff. Bernard says his responsibility is to make sure Brian meets their alive. Brian is like, "Nah, I don't want that today." Cold, we now flash back to the DA's office where Brian is thrown to the ground and copped by cops. That's the story he's telling Bernard now. He's saying that he takes everything from him. According to him, the DA owes him $892.34. And Bernard goes, "That's it." He tells him he's worth more than that. But Brian says he's worth nothing. Relatable. Brian says he's going to die tonight, and nobody can get why. When they're still in the call, Richard comes in and tells Bernard to move back to the truck. Bernard gets out of the car. He tells Brian to call Cassandra, and then also asks him to release one of the ladies. Brian asks him about the money, and Bernard gives his words and he lets one of the ladies go. We'll sort this out. But the typically paranoid Brian
Bernardo, what for your banner? You're still
Drink his brains with a straw. I made up the last part. Get out the troll Bernard says to the major to disrespect him and cut him off from his talking. Oh wow, but he ended with a sir, so I guess that's cool, right? He calls Cassandra in the FaceTime and he asks her if Brian has ever been violent. She says no, and she asks him why the FBI are on their way to her house. He says it's just procedure. He says if he do anything she doesn't like, she should just call him before they get off the call. Cassandra tells Bernard to tell Brian that Kaya says not to do anything too late. As he's setting up the call, and the FBI arrive at her house. Bernard calls Brian back and asks him to release one of the ladies. He says no again.
Brian again. Brian again. Make a sound, make a sound. Police in the new welcome unlimited plan for just $30 per line. Only on the right.
He's beginning to enjoy the company, and he needs his money first. Brian is now calling Cassandra, but the FBI agent tell her not to answer. Just before he calls again, Bernard calls back and asks to speak to one of the ladies. He gives the phone to Rosa, but she's too scared to talk, so he hands it over to Estelle, who pretty much yells that they are not intending Bernard to ask what everyone's doing. He tells her to stay calm and give the phone back to Brian. He asks if there's anything he'd like, and he asks him for some smokes. Bernard says if that is bring it to him, he drops the call and Estelle's now trying to be proactive. He tells Brian that he's the negotiator of the customer seeking his time to just put the money directly in his account. Brian says that's not what he wants. He doesn't really care about it. He just had to give it to him when he walks in the bank. Estelle is now crying, begging him to let her put the money in her account so she can be able to look for somebody out and tell him to do her best to make sure Brian doesn't die. He's telling her she needs him not to die. He seems to have got a control from shedding his tears, tells her to call his daughter. But Bernard thinks that if Brian finds out she put the money in his account without being yet, he might trigger him. You can never know. He's already spent whoever's talking to her should tell her to stop. And in fact, they should kill all bank communication except the phone. Major gives out the order CSCP, where Estelle's trying to do doesn't work. And Bernard calls Brian and tells him it's on CNN. Estelle confirms it on her phone and hands it to him. Bernard is now telling him that he has the PA what he wants from now, so everything is happened, that's what here matters. He hangs up and tells the ladies that one of them can go. Lisa from WBS is now meeting with the PA's office. He tells her Brian's file. The long and short of the conversation is that the system is rigged to take money from people like Brian, somehow. Anyhow, Bernard goes to get the pack of cigarettes and is ready for the exchange. Pack of smokes to one of the poles. Fair bargain. And it's at Ron. Inside the bank, the woman cannot decide who should leave. They say they can't leave each other there. Really sweet woman. But Brian decides Rosa will leave because he thinks it's better if he has a senior manager with him. I knew he was simping for Rosa. So he gives them information for how the exchange will go down. After which he heads to the bathroom where he calls his daughter and tells her he's going to be okay. He tells her to pray with him. Estelle's trying to make her escape. She opens the door and calls on Rosa to join her, but she's so scared. She's rooted to the spot. She even pees herself. Brian is still on the phone with his daughter. He's reading a prayer from a psalm in the Bible amidst tears. Kai is telling him to breathe. Such a brilliant girl. Finally, he tells her to always do right by people and treat them well. Then he says he will go ahead and let the woman out. But all Kai is concerned about is her puppy. He comes back out and he can see Estelle is mad at Rosa for not making the run with her. But I have respect and loyalty there, because she could have just gone without her without living against the Cis code. By the way, the officials are getting closer to the door. Brian says thank you to the woman, apologizes to them again. And while he's talking, a sniper takes a shot. Bernard is distraught while the rest of the officers make their way to the building. The FBI agents at the center says
call to just get out to leave. She asks him to find his dad, but they don't answer. The guard is calling Cassandra, but she doesn't pick up. She's outside her house in Kaya. A robot is now navigating to the bank and retrieves the bag from Brian's lifeless body. The guard heads inside and squats over Brian's body with a pack of cigarettes in his hand. When he picks up a little jewelry with the sign of a cross that belonged to Brian. Now, you know what's crazy? While he's inside, he's told by his partner that there was no mom all along. He was never going to go up to that. He just wanted the money that was owed to him. Now he's telling those about their families. He surely was $1 there for his legs. The guard heads home with the cigarettes and the cross and puts it on the shelf. We end with the scene where Brian is talking to his daughter and carries her. Remember, this is a true story, right? And that's where it's going. After everything that happened, Brian's family is still not receiving payments from the VA. Oh my dear Uncle Sam. More of the story, it really do be like that at times.
I just looked up these Morningstar Farms veggie sauce and breakfast sandwiches. These are protein after a long night out. That's the special totally.
We think of comets as some of the heavenly world spectacular pieces of eye candy, and most are the weather, orbiting harmlessly around the sun. But some will inevitably collide with another body, like Earth. At speeds of 25,000 miles an hour, even a small cosmic radar can reach enormous heights. But a larger object, over miles or more in diameter, can cause devastation on a global scale. When impacted by a comet, will kill so many people and introduce such a long-term changes in the environment that it can be a complete catastrophe for all humanity. Scientists now believe a single blast from space helped wipe out the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. A comet or asteroid about 6 miles across slammed into Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It dug a crater nearly 50 miles wide, 20 miles deep, in less than a second. And unleashed an explosion more powerful than all of the world's nuclear weapons combined. The force of the shockwaves triggered earthquakes worldwide and set tsunamis surging across the oceans. A mammoth dirt cloud erupted miles into the sky, engulfing the globe and blocking out the sun for years. The dinosaurs slowly perished. They were not alone. More than half of the Earth's species were also perished. In our solar system, there are two kinds of cosmic bullets capable of devastation on a planetary scale: asteroids and comets. Asteroids are essentially tiny planets, dense boulders of rock and metal left over from the formation of our solar system 4.6 billion years ago. Most are bunched into Mars or Jupiter, in an orbit called the asteroid belt. Comets, on the other hand, are far
Number 2? I have no idea what you mean by number 2.
our solar system. They are made up of rock and ice. Many, like Halley's Comet, orbit the sun in predictable paths, unpredictable schedules. But there are countless others we know nothing about. They come hurtling out of the ether at unimaginable speeds of up to 100,000 miles per hour. For scientists peering into space, they look like lumps of charcoal on a black canvas, invisible until they are practically upon us. Only near the sun do comets become easier to detect. These icy bodies shed gas and dust as the sun warms them. When light hits the debris, it blazes into view and can be seen millions of miles. But by that time, if word heads for us, it may be too late to do anything about it. The Earth is in a cosmic heating tower. We get hit by pieces of comet floating all sides, and the vigilance of Earth is very close up. It's only a matter of time before the comet is in the same place as you. Giant hot dogs all over our planet testify to past assaults. And these militaries may be more frequent than the rest of them. The latest happened a little more than a century ago. 1908, a massive explosion rocked Alaska in Russia's remote region of Siberia. Eyewitnesses described a flying star with a fiery tail. The sky opened and a fire hiding in the sun poured out. But an asteroid or a comet, it collided with the Earth's dense atmosphere at such a high rate of speed, the friction caused it to explode mid-air. It blew up 5 miles above the surface of the Earth, creating a huge explosion that lit up the atmosphere today. Was actually really dark at night. The tempestuous blast that came off was bigger and more powerful than the eruption of Mount St. Helens. It left no telltale crater, but it did flatten a forest of millions of trees over hundreds of square miles. An area bigger than that of Washington, D.C.
What happened?
If that was happened over a metropolitan area, it would have just wiped out its population for thousands of square kilometers around the impact site. How much you can think of course you spend you make a top Cajun church would love to order on the steel board. To astronomers, Augusta was a near miss, a relatively low impact. A major impact from a comet still related to devastating effects.
Imagine the following scenario. Scientists have spotted a 2-mile wide comet with a collision course with Earth. It's too late to stop it. The first thing you'll notice is the sky lights up in developments. Brilliant meteors streak across the sky as the giant comet's debris strikes the Earth's atmosphere. Forests catch fire, ignited by the superheat air. When the comet hits, the blast kicks up millions of tons of fiery rock and dirt. The airborne debris blankets the planet and blocks out the sun. Day turns to permanent night, bringing freezing temperatures year-round living. It takes more than a year for the dust to settle, and sunlight to filter through the clouds. When it does, the Earth starts to warm. Elevated levels of gases created by the fires turn the planet into a sweltering greenhouse. Millions of species of living things that survived the earlier cold cannot take the heat. They die. It takes thousands of years for life on Earth to recover. How great are the odds a comet will strike the Earth? Will never impact the Earth. It's going to happen again. The Earth is sitting out there with a bullseye on it. The chances of a major impact in our lifetimes may be slim, perhaps on the order of 1 in 100,000. But astronomers the world over are working fervently to understand these strangers in our midst, struggling to learn what comets are and where they come from. Mankind's ultimate survival may depend on our ability to stop one before it strikes. Donald Yeomans studied comets for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They're so big that they've got a lot of mass, and it's mass and velocity that's important when they hit. If we could track comets in advance and plot their orbits, we'd likely have many years of warning that the orbits veer toward us. It may seem like a tall order to scan the vast sea of space for that one pinprick that could spell disaster. But that's exactly what astronomers are doing. In 1992, the U.S. government launched an aggressive program to analyze the threat comets and asteroids pose to Earth. It's called the Space Guard Survey. Today, scientists all over the world are involved in a painstaking process. They point their telescopes at a single region of the sky and take periodic snapshots. Then they line up the images, looking for anything that moves frame to frame. We are looking first for the larger asteroids because the ones a mile or so in diameter, and eventually will extend it to smaller. Scientists have discovered nearly 4,000 comets in our solar system, with roughly 40 new ones in 2016. New comets are being discovered every year. We may never be able to locate every threat. There could be millions of comets and asteroids that measure 300 feet or so, the length of a sports field. Still, telescopes are our first line of defense against what could be a major disaster for our planet. If you don't look, you won't know anything. We would be taken by surprise just as much as the dinosaurs. If you do carry out a survey, then you hope that you can have warning. But it's one or the other. You either have years or decades of warning, or you're taken completely by surprise. There's nothing in between. There's three things that are important. You have to find them early. You have to find them early. Suppose we do detect a comet headed for Earth. Then what can we do? Scientists have just started to come up with solutions. One of the leading ideas? Smash a rocket into it to slow it or knock it off course. That's harder than it may seem. In 2005, scientists were ready to test their theories about how a comet would react when it was hit by crashing a rocket into one. It was called the Impact. It began here at NASA's vertical gun range in Mountain View, California, where it was the job of Dr. Pete Schultz and his team to figure out what the comet would do when it was hit. This particular instrument allows us to fire a small sphere, about a quarter inch, at a speed that are maybe 6 or 7 times the speed of a rifle bullet. This whole assembly rotates up to an elevation where the gun is basically 3 stories high. This allows us to send the projectile through different openings in the chamber so that we can impact a flat surface at different angles. Scientists believe comets vary in their makeup, so Schultz and his team built several different models, then hit each with a shot from their ultra-high-speed gun. The first scenario is what happens if we get back into something that looks like root dust. The second one is what happens if we impact into flood. And the third one is what happens if we impact into a flood, covered with an organic layer. As we go down and look at the evolution of this crater, we find at the very end, after it's finished, we still see the crater here. But in these two places where we're using flood, we can't see the crater. It's completely massive. The flood completely absorbed the projectile, a frustrating result for scientists hoping to get a look inside. And there was another possibility Schultz had to consider. What if the entire comet is extremely fragile and porous? He searched for a substance for that simulation. The comet may be sort of like a fluff log, may be very low density. What do we probably is the complex organic. What would that be? Cotton candy. We got a comet made of cotton candy. Drop lights and let's get out of here. The projectile soars right through the comet.
But no, that guy's actually really nice.
Yeah, stuff in. No dream.
Ah, damn, got my food.
For real.
Nothing in my
In my feet.
Bro, got the 1980.
Alright.
Oh.
In 2005, the team at NASA had completed their tasks and were ready to take the plunge. They were trying to drive an 820-pound impactor into a comet to find out what's inside. Deep Impact Principal Investigator, Dr. Michael Ahern.
Oh my god, I
What?
want those. I want those so much. Oh no.
Oh, the white fennec? Wait, can you show me all your items? Oh, are you serious, Neil?
What happened?
He's offering go explosion for my Skype fennec. Are you serious, Neil?
Oh, I can hear him.
Dude.
Well, don't show me your limited.
Are you serious right now?
It orbits the sun every 5.5 years.
Oh.
Much of its gas and ice. People would argue that we should preserve the comet for posterity. But during a violent study on one specific on the whole class,
Show me all your items.
takes 5 months to reach Temple 1's orbit. On July 2nd, 2005, it turns and points its cameras at the comet 500,000 miles away. Then, it releases its impactor. If all goes well, the collision will blow a hole in Temple 1 about 600 feet across, 5 stories deep, about the size of the Roman Colosseum. But it might destroy the comet by breaking it apart like cotton candy in the experiment. Back on Earth, hundreds of scientists hold their breath.
We lost signal, and we had to stand there and wait around. Everybody was trying to not feel anxious.
Just before impact, the signal returns. The half-mile wide comet that NASA's 820
Bro, he said
collided at 23,000
he said gray meteor shower is worth more.
explosion.
No way.
5 tons of TNT.
Are we done trading?
It completely
Yeah, wait.
vaporized out far more dust than
Oh god.
Wait, leave and invite me.
to the comet's
Wait, let me just.
Temple 1, at least on the surface, contains far more
Okay.
ice than scientists expected. This is the first data we've ever had, so in that sense it's revolutionary. Analysis of the dust showed molecules containing carbon, organic material. So it's plausible that comets could have brought such material to Earth early in its history. Scientists hope to learn something else from Deep Impact. Clues about how to stop a comet from colliding with Earth. Some thought Deep Impact might be on Temple 1,
was slightly different orbit. But the comet has continued on exactly the same path as before.
It was a secondary objective of the deep impact mission to come up with a plan to mitigate the impact if we had to.
I want to trade for them.
Figure out what it would take.
Virginia, please, bro, please. Oh.
Cruise intercept in Europe. We didn't figure out enough. One plan calls for detonating the nuclear warhead near the comet to nudge it onto a different path. A controversial proposal because of the unknown consequences of releasing radiation to space. Others have called for drilling into the nucleus and setting off a blast inside. But as we've seen, this has the danger of turning one deadly projectile into many. The pieces could continue on the same orbit, and like the blast from a shotgun, wreak destruction.
Why should I not accept?
Some have proposed less violent and equally intriguing solutions. They suggest putting lasers on the moon, where the Earth's atmosphere would not deflect them.
Yeah, lightning. What's your epic?
We might even hitch a spacecraft to a comet and tow it out of the way.
I'm dancing in my room, grabbing my feet, trying to give you love and kiss on the cheek. Cotton candy skies like I'm stuck in a dream.
Collision course. We may not be able to do anything.
Bro, they had Phoenix.
AMN passport.
Go away! Go away! Go away!
Can you actually stop this?
Go away, Daddy's gonna hurt a spoon. In the nice way, though. Go away!
Jacob, shut up. You're not funny.
That is gonna hurt us. Ah! Guess what, Mike?
What?
It's just me and you here. But in that screen, you're gonna see stuff.
That's okay.
He's still not here, man.
Hmm.
Still not here.
That means come in my chair.
No, my mom's been gone for like 2 hours.
Come get on my chair.
I'm gonna throw a burrito at you.
Don't do it. I was just kidding.
Imagine, okay, you know, Micah, I'm gonna just make us some chicken. My mom walks in like, chicken. Dang. You're the only one watching now.
I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
My account doesn't count. Stupid.
Yeah, it does. I'll do my account and I'll be going to my account and I'll say I'll have one person watching. I'll go on my account.
Hey, guess what?
Chicken butt.
You wanna know why?
Chicken thigh.
You wanna know what's best?
Chicken breast. You know Meg. Chicken leg.
Honestly, I'm still happy about this decal. The thing is, it's a sky blue. That's actually crazy. I'm gonna invite all my friends. See if anything pops up.
1992, The Amazing Spider-Man 2. 1992, The Man 2.
It's so good. Alright. Ooh, you wanna do the tournament?
Yeah.
2012, The Amazing Spider-Man.
Yes, please.
Jacob,
What?
I want you in my bed, but without me in it.
Yeah, I'll be sleeping all day.
Okay, then I'm gonna go to sleep on your bed if that's gonna happen. I'm gonna play.
Bye-bye.
I'm gonna play.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Mm. 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 She knows. Oh.
You and I have never been truly properly introduced. I am the one falling.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Oh my. Mama? Oh, it's just Gavin.
Gavin! I have trading.
Average seeming superhero.
I don't know how though, I just got it.
You find the Titans chasing a villain. Raven joins the Titans against familiar enemies and still finds most things annoying. But she does have two mini adventures focused on her. The first shows her date with Godboy, we saw hanging out with Raven at a party, and the second is when Trigon visits Titan's tower to eat Raven's soul.
What are you doing here, Trigon?
What? Can't bother visit his little girl.
You tried to destroy me. And my friends. And the Earth.
Something.
Is that you?
is.
Oh yeah. Oh wait, no, I'm on the
He's on
PlayStation.
PS4. Oh god, this game is gonna be so fun. Like, you already know this game becomes fun too.
Who said I did?
Cause just look at the parkour on this. If you run from zombies at night.
What? 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 Bruh.
Nowadays, modern VFX can not only easily make us believe a man can fly, but it can also make us believe that he can do it whilst wearing a bulletproof metal suit and being attacked by fighter jets packing missiles. Back in 1978, David Boyd's belief that a man can fly was a bold statement that meant that a complex and seamlessly impossible feat to accomplish. The special effects team began the process by testing numerous techniques. The first was shooting a model Superman out of an air cannon, but this method lacked controllability and natural movement. Next, they tried a radio-controlled flying model. This gave them control, but again lacked natural movement. Another technique was to have a model fly using wires, but this too had the same unnatural movement. So they tried out animation. This gave them the control and the movement they wanted, but they couldn't get a real look. And so it always appeared
You don't feel bad. Like you don't feel real bad.
I need to feel rude, dude. Hey, where's your school tablet? Oh, no. Huh? No.
Oh, they don't let him bring one home anymore because his last year got stolen.
Oh.
Who's on dishes right now?
Jacob.
They need to get done. I mean, y'all just sitting in there like y'all got all around the world. Man, dishes are wrecked. What are you making?
She's making something. She's going to be damn kitchen swank outside.
Real.
She's cleaning the kitchen. I heard her. She's going with it.
Hey, Dad. Grab another, brake stick.
Brake stick? Oh, alright.
Gavin.
I gotta put another zip on it, but I still got that whole
Gavin.
It's got a bunch of zips in it from when I fixed yours.
Do you stop?
Alright.
Gavin.
What?
Do you stop?
That's not what?
Who? I'll give you a meteor storm.
I do have two.
I'll give you a meteor storm.
Meteor storm.
Look, I can show you my gold explosions.
Coke. Mike is supposed to be helping.
Yeah, Michael, you could be.
Or does he get a break?
Come here. No, we're not gonna play with that. Come here.
You know what she's gonna make you do, right?
Ava.
Uh-huh. You know what would be the smart thing to do? You see all these cups in here? Pick them up and take them into the kitchen. That way there, they think you're doing something. That makes sense. And then Bubba can load the dishwasher. Yeah, get all them other ones too.
Jacob, are you still drinking out of this? It's like a lemon cup, okay.
Yeah, one of them is.